right, what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to another episode of the Just Ballin' podcast. Today, we are going to talk about 10 stars, borderline stars, that could be on the move this offseason, plus what I think the Clippers should do this offseason, and talk about their offseason plans, as they were just eliminated in 6 games by the Dallas Mavericks. We'll talk about that at the end of this pod. This is also coming out before Game 7 between the Cavs and the Magic, or at least I'm recording it before Game 7, so I do not know that outcome, and I'm also recording this before Game 1 of the Timberwolves and the Nuggets as well, which has a chance to be the best series as a whole during that throughout these whole playoffs. And I think we actually got the perfect round 2 matchups in the Western Conference. OKC versus Dallas, are you kidding me? That series can go either way. If Dallas won in 5, OKC swept, Dallas wins in 7, OKC wins in 6, I could totally see any different outcome from that series, as we're getting a healthy Luka and Kyrie. I know Maxi Kleber just got hurt, but that team is still relatively healthy, going up against a healthy OKC 1 seed that just swept the Pelicans in round 1. Yeah, that, like I said, has a chance to also, that also has a chance to be the best series in this playoff, in these playoffs. And then we're also getting Anthony Edwards versus Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Like, are you kidding me? The size of Minnesota could be the kryptonite to Dallas, or excuse me, Denver, or is Denver just going to go through everybody on their way to a repeat? How will McDaniels guard Michael Porter Jr.? How will Ant guard Jamal Murray? How will Gobert guard Jokic? Oh my God, I'm so excited for that series. It's going to be so much fun. I'm going to still ride with my pre-playoff predictions. I'm going to go with Denver, and I'm going to go with Dallas to advance to the conference finals. That's what I had pre-playoffs. I did have Dallas OKC in round 2, but I also did have Minnesota losing to Phoenix, and that ended up being a sweep. So maybe I don't know Minnesota that well, so take that with a grain of salt. As for the East, I do think the Knicks beat the Pacers. That series is also so weird. Like, I could see both teams winning in 6 or 5. I don't think it goes to 7, and I don't think either team sweeps. I know that's not really the greatest take in the world, but I'm going to say Knicks win that series in a very competitive series once again. I think every Knicks playoff game is going to be competitive. We saw Game 6. They were up by 22 points in the first quarter. They blew it in about 5 minutes later, so the Knicks will never blow out a team, I feel like, in these playoffs. That's going to be really exciting, and I think Boston still beats Cleveland or Orlando. I didn't see enough out of one of those two teams to think anything differently. I still think Cleveland wins that series. That was my pre-playoff prediction, so I'll still ride with them. But by the time you guys see this, who knows? Maybe that series already ended. So let's talk about 10 on the star, or moves that could happen this offseason involving star or borderline star caliber players. All right, so the first guy I want to talk about is going to be Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans. So the Pelicans ended up losing in round number 1, getting swept by the OKC Thunder, and that team obviously had its injury. Zion Williamson was out in that playoff series, and their season ends in disappointment once again. Brandon Ingram was horrendous in those 4 games. 14 points, 4.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He shot 35% from the field, 25% from 3. Did not look like anything of the Brandon Ingram we saw in the 2023 season. And I know it was still like 2 weeks coming back from his injury that he missed a decent amount of time towards the end of the season with. He didn't play well against the Lakers in the first leg of the play-in tournament, played better against the Kings in the second leg, but he is going to be an unrestricted free agent after this season, the next season in 2025. So the Pelicans, not a big market team, if they get any hint that Ingram does not want to sign an extension, or if New Orleans doesn't really want to give Ingram a max deal, they have to be inclined to move him this offseason, because you don't want to drag this out to the trade deadline. You might not get a good enough return. It could be a Pascal Siakam level return, which is fine, but it's not a great return. That if the the Raptors traded Siakam the offseason prior, they would have got a little bit more, in my opinion. So the Pelicans, I think, would be very inclined to move Brandon Ingram this offseason. It would make sense, in my opinion, for them, as I don't think him and Zion Williamson are really going to work out long term. Ingram did not take a step forward this year, and I thought he was going to be like this elite playmaker that we saw at the end of the 2023 season, where he was getting multiple triple-doubles left and right, but his points dropped from 25 a night to 20.8 a night. The rebounds went down, the assists went down. Like I said, the playmaking really wasn't better. The three-point shooting went down as well, and him getting to the line and his free throw percentage also went down. So not trending in the right direction whatsoever for Brandon Ingram. So maybe he does need a new change of scenery, and that could definitely be beneficial to him and New Orleans in the offseason. And it's exciting. So there's some other guys that could be mentioned on this list that he could be traded for, and to not spoil any of those names, I'm not really going to mention any players that they can get for, but I'm sure they would want either an elite big man, or an elite playmaking guard. I don't know if they're going to find an elite big man on the market. Like, would they do some type of Brandon Ingram for Nick Claxton sign and trade? Potentially. Nick Claxton isn't mentioned in this video. There could be some point guards, specifically in Atlanta, that could be on their way to New Orleans for sure. Could there be a Kevin Durant for Brandon Ingram trade? Probably not, but that could obviously be brought to the table. Could Golden State try to get Brandon Ingram for Jonathan Kuminga, and maybe Andrew Wiggins potentially, and that's the way to get off of the I mean, that'd be amazing for Golden State. I know you give up Kuminga, but you get off of the Wiggins contract and you upgrade Kuminga to Brandon Ingram. That is pretty nice. I mean, there's so many different teams that can get involved for Ingram. Sacramento could try to look to get a third name to pair him up with Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. And since he's an expiring contract, you may not have to give up. You may not have to give up Keegan Murray, but you definitely have to trade a boatload of draft picks going forward. Brooklyn could be desperate. So like I said about Nick Claxton, or there could be some other plays involved, and they have those Suns first round picks and Philly's first round picks going forward. Atlanta could definitely be in the mix. I'm sure the Lakers will be in conversations. Maybe there's a sign and trade with Paul George on the LA Clippers involved. I don't think the Knicks would be involved, but hey, maybe if they could still keep Randall and trade for Ingram, I'm sure they would love to do that if they did. Bojan Bogdanovic, maybe Deuce McBride, and all their first round picks. But I think a team will go after Ingram. I mean, like, the Jazz have all that draft capital as well, but that's also a thing. Ingram's a free agent next year. If you're a smaller market team like Utah, would you really want to give up all these picks if he leaves for you in a year and it just doesn't work out? That's why it's a little scary with Brooklyn, but they're in somewhat of a bigger market and they maybe are able to keep Ingram. I don't really know where Ingram prefers to play. He did spend, he signed that rookie extension with New Orleans, but hey, he didn't really have a choice, so he stayed in New Orleans. I'm not really sure where his desire is to play. He's still just 26 years old, and I think Ingram would fetch a ton on the open market. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about Miami Heat guys. So I originally just had Tyler Hero written down, but then there's been some rumors. Sean Hollinger, the Athletic, said that Jimmy Butler could be on the move this offseason because he wants a max contract from Miami, and Miami might be hesitant to give it to Jimmy because he's had his injury past and he's getting up there in age. He's going to be 35 years old. So would it be really worth it to go out and give Jimmy Butler $180 million going forward? I don't know. That's a little tough. So I had Hero written down first, and Hero could be moved if, like, it's been talked about for the last couple of off seasons, right? Donovan Mitchell came up in the 2022 offseason. Damian Lillard came up in the 2023 offseason. Like I said, there's Brandon Ingram. Like, there could be a Brandon Ingram for Tyler Hero, just straight up swap out there. I think Miami, if they do re-sign Jimmy, they would look to move Hero. I don't think Hero is good enough as a main rotational guy, or excuse me, your number 3 option. If you want to win a championship, you need to upgrade that somewhat. So maybe that's Hero in a Hawkeyes package, Hero and Robinson in picks, Hero and Jovic to go out and upgrade that number 3 option, but really your number 2 scoring option, but maybe your number 3 player overall. Like, Bam, an elite player in this league, but not really an elite offensive player. A lot of that eliteness comes from the defensive end of the floor. A damn good offensive player, but not somebody where it's like Jimmy's getting double teamed. Who can create your own shot? I'm not giving it to Bam, really. Like, he can kind of make some magic happen when the defense or when the offense breaks down and it's kind of chaotic, but I would really have somebody a little bit more reliable than Tyler Hero, who did not play well in the playoffs. Like Brandon Ingram was coming back from an injury towards the end of the year, but he shot 38% from the field, 35% from 3, 90% from the line. Did not play good defense. The playmaking also really wasn't all that. It was okay, but I don't think Hero can really step up. I don't know if he's going to improve too much. We'll see going forward, but I do think Tyler Hero has a chance to get moved this offseason if Miami does re-sign Jimmy Butler and looks to make a corresponding move to upgrade that second scoring option and maybe that third option in general. Now, for Jimmy Butler, I would be very shocked if he got traded this offseason. It would be kind of crazy. He is an unrestricted free agent next offseason, or has a player option, I believe, like Brandon Ingram. So he does have a player option for the 26th season at $52 million. And Miami doesn't have to trade him. Like, they could just make him play out the contract next year for sure. And if Jimmy gets hurt or has a bad year and shows regression, he could just take that $52 million and run with it, right? So I don't think he really needs to get extended this offseason, but I could see why he wants to, just to get maybe another guaranteed $100 million, $120 million before he retires. So, I mean, I get it. Would I give Jimmy Butler 3 years, 160, 150? Probably not. I think I'd be a little scared to do that, as he's going to be 35 years old. And I know he's brought you to a title in 22 and 23, or at least to the finals, not to a title. But I don't know, man. That's a lot of money to give out, and I don't know if the Miami Heat operate that way. So I think it's more likely that Hero gets moved this offseason than Jimmy. But who steps up as a Jimmy destination, right? I don't even know. Like immediately I was like, wait, Cat for Jimmy? No, like I don't know, but I'm sure Jimmy would maybe want to go play with Anthony Edwards, as Cat would be gone and Andrew Wiggins is gone from that team. That'd be kind of funny. Would OKC want Jimmy Butler? They had the assets to do so. There could be a reunion in Philadelphia now that Tobias Harris isn't there. It kind of could be fitting for Jimmy to come back, but you got to give up valuable assets, right? I don't think Brooklyn could want to do it, but you're not really going anywhere with Butler at 35 years old and Mikal Bridges, in my opinion. I mean, the Knicks, they would have to, you would have to trade Randall and Mike Bojan and picks and maybe McBride. I don't know if that's worth it. I don't really know if the Knicks get better. I don't really think it's worth it for Jimmy. That's going to be 35 years old. And I mean, it was a fluke injury with like Oubre falling on him, but like injuries are more prone as you get older, obviously. So I don't really know if that's worth it. Maybe there's an Atlanta trade in here, like a DeJounte. I don't know. It depends if like Miami would be like, all right, we're fine taking a semi-big step back. We can get some draft capital, get a young player, or they want somebody that can also help them contend next year. That's like a really big question mark. But yeah, Jimmy could be on the move this offseason. All right, we're going to talk about one of two Atlanta Hawks. First one will be Trae Young. Trae Young is 25 years old. He has spent every single year of his career so far, all 6 years in Atlanta. It's going to hit me next year when we're going to find out Trae Young is going into year 7. Oh my God, I'm getting so old. I was at the draft how old was I? I was 7. That was the 2018 draft. Was I 18? I was 18 at that draft watching it live. Holy shit, I'm going to be 25 years old next year in October. That is kind of crazy. Time is flying. Trae Young, though, coming off another All-Star season. He was an All-Star replacement. He's got 3 in his career. He's averaged 25 points and 9.5 assists over his 6-year career. You take out his rookie year, when then he broke out and averaged 29.5 points and 9.5 assists in year 2. Kind of crazy. He's averaging 27 points and 10 assists over the last 5 years. And Trae Young he's not a good defender. He's not. But he did improve this year on the defensive end of the floor, where I would say he's not the worst defender in the league this year. I think he's closer to like your Donovan Mitchell and your Tyrese Haliburton and DeJounte Murray, poor guard defenders of the world now. Well, Donovan Mitchell, I think, has been a little bit better. I think he gets a bad rap. He's not an elite defender, but I think he gets a bad rap. And I don't know what happened to Haliburton's defense, because he was pretty elite, in my opinion, at Iowa State. But either way, Trae Young could be on the move this offseason. It's pretty much going to be, does Atlanta want to keep Trae Young? Do they want to keep DeJounte Murray? That is going to be a big question for them. Trae Young is owed $40 million this year, which is getting paid, obviously, $43 million next year, $46 million in 26, and $49 million in 27. So he's under contract for the next 3 seasons. And would Atlanta be like, you know what? Could be the peak of his value. Let's move him. But he could also be more valuable to Atlanta than he is to the teams on the open market. That'd be trading for him. Big contract. Maybe year 2022 was a fluke when they made it to 21 when they made it to the conference finals was a fluke when they beat Philadelphia, because they haven't even sniffed that since. So can Trae Young lead a team? Those are all valuable questions, but I think it would be a little enticing out there if you're San Antonio, if you're Utah, that have all these draft capitals, and you could pair up Trae Young and Larry Markkinen in Utah. You could pair up Trae Young and Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio. If you're Orlando, I don't know if it would happen in division, but you could pair up Trae Young and Paolo Banchero in Orlando, right? Like, there are teams out there that would be willing to give up picks and assets for Trae Young, in my opinion. I think the big question is, does Atlanta want to trade Trae Young? Because Trae Young is probably going to go down as one of the greatest Hawks ever, right? He may, I could be off with this, but he could be top 3 like top 3 Hawk already, which is kind of crazy. Like, obviously, number 1, you have Dominique Wilkins. He's already surpassed Joe Johnson, Al Horford, and those of the world, in my opinion. Like, win share wise, obviously he's not there. He hasn't really played long enough. But like, I mean, you go back to your Bob Pettits of the world and your Bob Cousy's. Cliff Hagan was good there. Lou Hudson, John Drew, Al Horford, Tree Rollins. I don't know though. Like, as like a pure like meaningful standpoint, it could go to Trae Young. And like, they were the St. Louis Hawks with Bob Pettit, right? Like, we're talking like strict Atlanta Hawks. It may be Dominique and now Trae Young. Like, St. Louis Hawks as well with Cliff Hagan. So yeah, pure Atlanta Hawks, he could be up there already. So it would be tough to like stomach that and convince your fan base, like, trust us, we're going in the right direction, when we're now another year removed from the conference finals run and they haven't sniffed that since and had multiple first round exits since that, and obviously just missing out on the playoffs as a whole this year, a year after trading for DeJounte Murray. So Young could get moved this offseason for sure, and it could be to, I think, a Utah of the world. Maybe I don't think he ends up in like a Miami or anything like that. I don't know if Houston would want to give up valuable assets to go out and get Trae Young, but I think there's a chance he could get moved. I mean, maybe he just wants out of Atlanta. And then obviously DeJounte Murray could be a little bit easier to stomach if you trade him if you're Atlanta. But obviously, like, Murray isn't as good as Trae Young, so he would fetch a far lesser return than Trae Young would. And you just gave up 3 first-round picks basically for DeJounte Murray back in the 22 offseason. Could you afford to lose him for just 1 first-round pick, right? That kind of stinks. And you traded basically 2 of your first-round picks, a swap, and then there's the Charlotte pick. So obviously you could stomach losing that Charlotte pick. You got it for Cam Reddish, which was a good trade for them. It was Kevin Knox and that Charlotte pick for Cam Reddish. The Knicks got fleeced there on that trade. Well, not fleeced, but it definitely worked out a little bit more for Charlotte, or for Atlanta, who leveraged that Charlotte pick for DeJounte Murray. And you threw in Gallo in that trade, which was fine. You got off of that contract as well. So I don't think, it's just like you still want to stay competitive. And that's why you move Trae Young to a non-San Antonio team. You're losing out on that draft capital still, and you cannot afford to be bad. Like, nothing is worse than trading one of your draft picks and then being bad that year and losing out on a top 5 pick. Just ask any Carolina Panther fan how much like pain they're going through seeing Caleb Williams get drafted number 1 overall. This is the NFL talk. Like, you don't want that to happen. Like, Kyrie Irving was drafted by the Cavs with a Clippers pick. You don't want that to happen. You do not whatsoever. It is probably the worst feeling in the world. So you want to be good when those picks are going to San Antonio if you're Atlanta. And that's why I think it would make more sense to move DeJounte than Trae Young. If you could somehow turn DeJounte, maybe it's Kobe Buffkin and AJ Griffin into Ingram and extend Ingram, boy, I would do that in a heartbeat for sure. If you're able to move just Murray for a wing that you can extend, that's just as good. I would do that. I would not want to move Murray for like the rumored D'Lo with a first-round pick at the deadline. If you can get Austin Reeves in a first-round pick, I would think about that, because if you can get a good enough player, that's like 85% of what Murray is, and a first rounder, I think I could stomach that going forward, because you still have Jalen Johnson. You hope Okongwu's the starter, or maybe you just move Murray and Clint Capella for Brandon Ingram. Like, that could make sense for both parties with Valanciunas being a free agent. So I think Murray probably has a higher percentage chance on getting moved this offseason than Trae Young. All right, you know, I had to talk about LeBron, right? I just had to. LeBron James is set to be a free agent for the first time in quite some time, basically since signing with the LA Lakers. He always signed those 1+1s with them. It's crazy also how long LeBron's like basketball references is all the awards. So he's got a $51 million player option next year that it's looking like he may opt out of. I don't think he opts into that. If anything, I think if he stays with the Lakers, he opts out of it and signs maybe a 3-year deal on which he wants. But then there's the Bronny factor. There's if the Lakers want to commit $150 million to LeBron, but they really can't afford to lose him for nothing, right? Like, if he declines that player option, the Lakers are like, we don't really want to sign you until you're 42 years old. And he goes out and signs with, like, I don't know, or goes to Cleveland or Philadelphia, who has cap space, basically would make the most sense. Then you're like, wow, we just lost somebody that averaged 25 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds for us last year, was arguably our best player or second best player behind AD for nothing. And then the Lakers probably wouldn't make the playoffs without LeBron James next year. So they can't afford to do that. Could there be a sign and trade? I mean, he would definitely be doing the Lakers a huge favor with that. But if he ends up leaving this offseason to go play with Bronny, who maybe gets drafted, I don't know, maybe it's by Cleveland, maybe it's by Philly, maybe it's by New Orleans, and LeBron's like, all right, I want to play with my son, there's an opportunity to do that, he would go and do it. I think maybe Cleveland, if Cleveland used their first on LeBron, that could make this like the only bit of sense. And if you're Cleveland and like the Lakers are like, please do a trade with us, like, you're not giving up Garland or Mitchell. Like, no way the Lakers are getting Mitchell out of this. Like, now we're talking out of our ass here. So it's just going to be a wild offseason for the LeBron rumors. If I had to bet he's on the Lakers starting the 2025 season, would I be shocked if he's a Cav or a Sixer? Honestly, yeah. Or if he's a Knick or anything like that, totally. I would be 100% shocked. It would be kind of the craziest thing ever. But I had to talk about LeBron because of the rumors that it could potentially happen. All right, so I want to talk about Donovan Mitchell of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's kind of in a similar position to Brandon Ingram, is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the 25 season. I think Cleveland would be more inclined to keeping Donovan Mitchell this offseason, though. So I think I would put a higher percent chance that Ingram gets moved than Donovan Mitchell, just because they gave up all that for Donovan Mitchell in the 2022 offseason. Agbaji, Markkanen, Sexton, ton of picks, couple swaps in there that Utah now owns, and obviously Markkanen has worked out a ton for Utah. Mitchell, like I said, is an unrestricted free agent potentially in 2026. He does have a player option at $37 million. He would be so stupid to pick that up, even if he wants to stay in Cleveland, because he can make $45-50 million on a new extension, and he's a damn good player and is worth it. So he is declining that player option no matter where he is, no matter where he wants to sign. So this is his last year of his current contract for sure. Cleveland, like New Orleans, cannot afford him to lose for nothing because Cleveland has a window. Cleveland is still in a solid position without Donovan Mitchell. It's not the end of the world if he is not on this team next year. You have Darius Garland, who I know took a step back, but showed life in Game 6 that he could still be a really good player for you. And I still like Garland a ton. I think he'll come around. He had his injuries this year. Mobley looks so freaking good defensively when he's healthy. And I think there'll be questions. Is Mobley better at the 5 than putting him out there with Jared Allen defensively? Because he's been a beast in this Orlando series on the defensive end of the floor when Jared Allen has been out. So could there be an Allen trade this offseason? Yeah, who knows what happens? Maybe Jared Allen is traded for Brandon Ingram, and we see Cleveland trade for Brandon Ingram, and they're going all in again on the 25 season with Garland, Mitchell, Ingram, and Mobley at the 5. And then like you throw Strus or somebody out there. I don't know. Like that's a potential thing that could happen this offseason. I have no idea. There could be a plethora of teams that are interested in Donovan Mitchell. Brooklyn would probably be most notable because Donovan Mitchell from like the New York area, Northeast area, like he went to high school in New Hampshire. He was born, I think, in Connecticut, or he's born in Elmsford, New York, has Connecticut ties. His dad played for the Mets. Like, I think he wants to go to New York, and Brooklyn could pair him up with Mikal Bridges. They have all that draft capital from the Kevin Durant trade, was blanking on that, and they have some Dallas picks from the Kyrie trade, and they have some Sixers picks from the Harden trade that they could go out and trade for Donovan Mitchell. And they don't own their first round pick basically going forward. So Brooklyn cannot afford to be bad. Like I said on the Atlanta thing, they don't want to lose out on a Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey because they don't own their first round pick next year. So they're definitely inclined, in my opinion, desperate to go out and trade for a star. And that could be Donovan Mitchell this offseason. If there's a team not named Brooklyn, I mean, I'm sure Miami would offer Tyler Hero and whatever picks they can offer. I don't know if we see the Knicks thing happen anymore. I don't. I think the Knicks would probably look for somebody with a little bit more size. I don't know. And like, it'd probably be Randall. You're not going to get done with Bojan and do some picks. So like, but the Knicks want to move Randall, but Cleveland maybe would want that. Like Randall at the 4, Mobley at the 5 could actually be kind of appealing with Garland out there. I'm trying to think any other team that would really go out and get Donovan Mitchell. I mean, I'm sure Golden State would offer Kuminga and Wiggins, or they're not moving Draymond, so it'd probably have to be Wiggins to make the money work, or a sign and trade. Kuminga gets signed, but no, he can't. I don't know how that works because Kuminga can't get signed right away and then traded because of the poison pill, and you'd have to wait, I think, 6 months. So there's going to be some teams out there. I mean, I'm sure like Houston would probably want to go after Donovan Mitchell as well, but it's like, are you extending him? That's the big thing. And I don't know, like Orlando would be like damn good suited to go out and trade for him as well with like the picks they have. They have a Suns pick later on. Maybe they can keep Franz in a trade as well and you leverage it with Anthony Black. I don't know, but either way, Donovan Mitchell I think could be on the move this offseason. So I mentioned him briefly with the Knicks, and like Julius Randle I think could be on the move. We'll see if the Knicks have proven to go to the second round without him. Same spot where they were last year. And if you just watched any Miami Heat series game last year, Randle was such a non-factor offensively. Like, yeah, he draws a little bit of attention on the defensive end of the floor, and that could help out Jalen Brunson. But I think this Knicks team could see, like, they could make it to the conference finals without Randle. They could look at two things here. They could be like, all right, if we had Randle, we could have went to the NBA finals. Or they could be like, we went to the conference finals without Randle. We think this team could be better suited without him. He's going to be a free agent, I think, in 2025 as well. Let me just double check. Yes, $32 million player option. So he's kind of playing on the last year of his deal. Like Brunson, Brunson's going to get a max extension. I think the Knicks, like, they're comfortable paying $50 million eventually to Brunson. Would they feel like that for Randle? Probably not. So I think Randle could be on the move. If I'm a Knicks fan, if I'm the Knicks, I would trade Randle for Mikal Bridges. I think you have these guys that can work out, that crash the board, that like rebound at a really good level, that hustle, that play defense, that can hit threes. And yes, it has the connection of Nova. And I think that the power of friendship, the continuity, the chemistry could bring a title to New York with Mikal Bridges there at the 4 for New York. And he's going to be due for a new extension. But would Brooklyn want to do that? Probably not. Like, I don't think they benefit from Randle unless they're getting even more picks in that deal. Because I think in a vacuum, like, Randle is just as good as Bridges. I don't think they're really any different. But the position of Brooklyn, I don't think they would want to just trade Bridges straight up for Randle. They would want Randle plus picks and then maybe leverage those picks for somebody else. That's even if they like Randall, right? So I don't really know if it'd be a Randall for Bridges. Could Randall end up in Miami? Could Randall end up in Cleveland? Could Randall end up in New Orleans? All possibilities for sure. I do think the Knicks would look to move him this offseason, no matter how this kind of playoffs end. And the last two guys I want to talk about, James Harden and Paul George, basically. And I'm just going to kind of leverage that into the Clippers offseason talks. Obviously, the Clippers had another disappointing exit, a team that had championship aspirations, lose in round number 1 to the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games. With Kawhi Leonard hurt once again, I'm giving up on Kawhi Leonard basically as a whole of this dude ever being healthy for a playoff series because we have not seen it in quite some time. We saw it last year in like the first couple of games, and then they got bounced by the Suns. It's been so long since we've seen a healthy Kawhi in the playoffs because in 2021, when they beat the Jazz, he was hurt and then missed all the 22 season. They missed the playoffs. It's just been so long. So I'm giving up on it. Kawhi is due $50 million for basically the next 3 seasons. It's kind of disgusting, man. It really is. He's going to be 36 at the end of that deal. He's going to be 33 next year. He had such a healthy regular season, so it's such a goddamn shame that we didn't see him in the playoffs. Paul George, though, unrestricted free agent can be. He's going to opt out of that player deal most likely. He can get one last bag. Sixers got max cap space. The Magic had max cap space. The Spurs had max cap space. Teams can make sign and trades. We could have just seen the end of Paul George on the Clippers. It looks like they want to bring back Ty Lue, sign him to an extension. I'm sure he'll get some Lakers talks as well because he was the coach of LeBron in 2016 when the Cavs won it all. James Harden is an unrestricted free agent. They could lose him. Would I want to give James Harden 4 for 120? No. 3 for 120? Hell no. He's not the James Harden of old. He's not Rockets Harden. He's not Brooklyn Harden. He's not first-year Sixers Harden. And that was even a good Harden. So I'm scared, though, because the Clippers, what else are they going to do? They don't have their picks. Like, they're in the same Hawks-Nets situation. You can't be bad. You can't. If you could do a sign and trade for Harden, send him to San Antonio, sure, do that. I just don't know, man. I just don't know what you do if you're the Clippers because Kawhi's under contract. You're getting Zubats back. You're getting Norman Powell back. I would sell high on Norman Powell for sure. I would definitely sell high on him. I don't know if you can get a point guard, but I would sell high on him. Maybe it's a sign and trade. PJ Tucker, you got to pay $11.5 million to next year. Man is still a fine rotational piece. Russ has a $4 million player option. If I'm Russ, I'm opting into that. I would not give Russ a contract if I'm any team. There's not one single team out there that I would want to pay Russell, like I would want to bring Russell Westbrook on. Maybe it's a desperate team like a Phoenix. Maybe it's a desperate team like a Brooklyn or a Clippers or a Milwaukee, sure. But man, Russ's jumper is so broken, and he was so bad in the playoffs offensively. And he is, going to be 36 next year? Hell no. Hell no, man. I'm just kind of off Russ. I honestly think he should retire, which is a shame because I really like Russell Westbrook a ton. It really is a shame. So they drafted Kobe Brown, 30th overall last year. I was not a fan of that pick. There was some talented players on the board that they should have taken. So I don't know, man. The Clippers, I think you got to bring back Paul George and James Harden if you can. If you lose them, you damn better hope it's a sign and trade. Like, can you send Paul George to Orlando and you can bring in Markelle Fultz and Mo Wagner, or Markelle Fultz and Gary Harris. Like, you need something in return. You cannot afford to lose these guys for nothing unless you let Paul George and you let Harden walk, and you could somehow convince Pascal Siakam to pair him up with his 2019 championship teammate Kawhi Leonard, right? Like, you better hope there's something crazy you can pull out of your ass this offseason. If not, you can't afford to lose these guys for nothing. Lose out on your first-round pick next year because, damn, it's going to be a black hole. But Ballmer's the richest owner in the NBA. They're getting a new arena. I assume they're going to give max contracts to Harden and Paul George and run it back. But if they lose them for nothing, it's going to be some dark times for the Clippers. So yeah, that is going to be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the Just Ballin' Podcast. Talk about the Clippers offseason plans, and then also talked about 10 guys as a whole that I think could be on the move this offseason. If you guys did enjoy, I would really appreciate you dropping a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. And let me know in the comments what you guys think of this. Do you think some of these guys can get moved this offseason, or am I just kind of being crazy? And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I'd really appreciate just maybe following. Like, that means so much, and this podcast is growing, and it means a lot. And maybe just leave a 5-star rating or review. It takes a couple seconds, but it really goes a long way. Thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.